MS translators. It has just gone 4:30 a.m. here in Melbourne, Australia, and we've just finished day one of MS Virtual 2020, the online version of the ACTRIMS-ECTRIMS joint MS research conference. And I thought that I would record a short little video giving you an update on what we heard about today before I get some sleep. So the day started with a really interesting presentation from Professor Helen Tremlett from the University of British Columbia, who was talking about the MS prodrome. So you may have heard us talking about this before on MStranslate. Essentially, it's this concept of the fact that there are a whole heap of health changes that are occurring well before a person gets diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Now, Professor Tremlett presented a lot of data that they've found that have supported this concept, including the fact that people living with MS experience more hospitalizations than the general public within the 5 years before they're diagnosed with MS. They're also more likely to experience mental health concerns, more likely to take up prescriptions for medications, and many other concepts. They've found that there are many different factors that can be associated with this prodrome. So things such as increased levels of pain get reported in that 5-year period before being diagnosed with MS, or before the onset of multiple sclerosis. Bladder issues, migraine, anemia, fatigue, mental health issues. So there's lots of different things that are getting reported in that time frame that all seem to be more common in people who will end up being diagnosed with MS within that time. Interestingly, she also presented the results of a Norwegian study that found that cognitive problems, cognitive issues or decrease in cognitive function were identified in men with primary progressive multiple sclerosis up to 20 years before they were actually diagnosed or before the onset of that disease. So the concept here is that maybe there are some signs or some signs or some symptoms that may allow us to diagnose multiple sclerosis earlier. And as we know, the earlier we can diagnose, the earlier we can begin treating. And this opens up the potential for preventing some long-term disability. Then went into a session looking at environmental and lifestyle factors that impact on multiple sclerosis. And there were some really interesting presentations in that session as well. So one of the biggest things, again, that they talk about in terms of lifestyle factors that can affect progression and risk was smoking. And so there was some more data presented on that, data that showed that having the two major genetic risk factors for developing MS and smoking increase your risk of developing MS by 13 times. So again, showing that smoking really does increase the risk of developing MS, but also we know now that it also can worsen progression as well. There was a presentation looking at the role of Epstein-Barr virus and discussion around whether multiple sclerosis is actually just a rare complication of an Epstein-Barr virus infection, and we've talked about that a little bit recently on MStranslate as well, with new data suggesting that potentially 100% of people living with multiple sclerosis have been previously infected with Epstein-Barr virus, indicating that it's actually an essential part, or potentially an essential part, or a critical part for developing MS. In the afternoon session, we looked a little bit at potential treatments for progressive MS, and we know that this is a really important topic for parts of the MS community, because this is really an area of unmet need for people who are living with progressive MS. There was an interesting presentation from Dr. Fonderico from the University of Florence, where they looked at some data from a cohort of people living with primary progressive MS in Italy, and found that some of the disease-modifying therapies, or being on disease-modifying therapies, could actually delay the time taken to needing a wheelchair in this population of people with primary progressive MS. They found that being on treatment for a longer period of time and starting that treatment earlier achieved the best results. Now, he did say that they needed more data in this area to really confirm those results and to be able to make any sort of definitive statements. But again, anything in this area and any studies in this area are obviously highly important and really interesting and worth discussing. There was some discussion about high-dose biotin, as this has been something that has been trialled recently as a potential option for the treatment of progressive MS, but the general consensus of the panel discussing this is that they wouldn't be recommending high-dose biotin for people living with progressive MS at this stage, considering the phase 3 trial results from MedDay looking into this showed that it wasn't effective in that trial, failed. We believe that they may be looking further into it, but at this stage they wouldn't be recommending that. There was also some discussion around ofatumumab. So ofatumumab is another B-cell depletion therapy similar to ocrelizumab or Ocrevus that's recently received FDA approval for the treatment of relapsing remitting MS. And the panel were discussing whether or not there may be potential that ofatumumab maybe have some benefits for people living with progressive MS. And the consensus of the panel was that there is some quiet optimism that it may have the potential to be beneficial for people with progressive MS, based on the fact that Ocrevus or ocrelizumab showed some potential in that population as well. However, they did say that phase 3 trial data would be needed before any real comments could be made about that. So a really interesting first day. Looking forward to day 2, I guess night 2 for us here in Australia tomorrow night. I can also share that we've, during the course of the presentations today, had some really positive discussions with a number of other attendees, and we're really hopeful that we'll be able to provide you with some interviews of some of the people who are presenting at the conference for them to discuss their research directly with you. And we'll be bringing you those over the coming weeks. So hopefully you found this update interesting. If you do have any questions about any of the things that I've talked about in this video, feel free to post them in the comments and I'll make sure that I respond to those. Have a look at what's coming up in day 2, and if you have any things that you're particularly interested in, let me know and I'll make sure that I focus on those for my video update tomorrow. Thanks everyone.